Hi everyone, my name is Patricia Davila. I'm a photojournalism major with a focus in social issues. Before I go ahead and start, I wanted to thank my advisors, my faculty advisors. I have Stephen McAlpine right here, who's been with me like the whole time through my degree proposal, capstone proposal, everything. Thomas Field, who is with Modern Languages and Linguistics, and Lynn Casabon, who has helped me with my aesthetics of my whole project. All right. And I want to go back to my beginning slide, and I want to go ahead and define these three words for you. Limapi, Andes, Runacuna. These are Quechua words, which is an indigenous language of the Andes Mountains. Limapi means in Lima. Andes, of course, is talking about the Andes mountain range. And Runacuna is a plural of person, so it's people. So Andean people in Lima. So this is what we're talking about today. All right? And I want to go ahead and start with this photo that I took in Lima. And I want to go ahead and ask you a couple questions. First of all, what is this photo saying to you about Andean identity? Anybody care to jump in?
Has skirts and hats.
Okay. And what is going on in this photo to you? What do you see in this photo?
It looks like some type of festival.
Right.
It's really colorful, so it makes me think of something like celebratory or...
Exactly. So this is basically what I was going for. When I took this photo, this is what I was seeing. When I thought of Andean culture, I saw colors, I saw celebrations, and a lot of colors are very, very typical in Andean culture. So basically, I studied in Lima, Peru. It's right over here. As I did my study abroad here, and I decided to do my capstone here as well. I've always been interested in indigenous cultures, particularly because I come from a country that had a very rich culture and very rich indigenous culture. Though it has been, unfortunately, basically wiped out, I was interested in looking at how it's manifested in another country, so I picked Lima, Peru. Basically, my main purpose is to establish a bridge of mutual understanding between the photographer, who's me, of course, and participants, Andean participants. I also wanted to establish a connection between the people who viewed these photos and the photos taken. And right here, I'm talking about an overarching concept of identity, just how it's manifested in this particular place. And I wanted to explore this going through just different disciplines, not through just one. So, my key research questions were, how is Andean culture being manifested in Lima, like I said, in a globalized and urbanized environment? Also, how can identity be conveyed through photography? Basically, like I said, through me and through the Andean participant? And how can I achieve a middle ground between both sides? So my disciplinary perspectives were visual arts, mainly photography, and anthropology. I chose identity because you can take photos and you can basically show identity through photos. Identity is fluid and open to interpretation, and you can define them from both of these disciplines. And I also wanted to, of course, look at what does it mean to be Andean. I wanted to look at physical identity, and I wanted to portray this identity through the photographs, because the photography, you can say different things in photography that you can't necessarily explain through words. So right here, my methodology, of course, again, photography, it's a method of communication. And right here, as you can see, one of my participants' name is Javier, and he took this photo, and what he's doing by taking this photo is he's showing us how he sees aspects of his culture, from Cusco specifically, and how it's preserving itself in Lima's urbanized context. So right here, we see people from Cusco are on a university campus in Lima selling their arts and crafts. I'm also keeping in mind portraiture and aesthetics, the technical aspects of this project. Identity through portraiture, what does this person's face say about his identity, a subject position in the frame, the aesthetics. It adds meaning and clarity. Another more technical part of this is snowball sampling. We use this in anthropology and sociology. It's a research method to gain participants. So basically what I was doing was I was telling people about my project and getting them interested. Maybe they would go and tell other people about this, and I would gain participants that way. And that's how I did gain my participants. Right here we have establishing rapport. This is another research method. And basically, this is to establish mutual understanding between the researcher and the participant, so that so from the participant's point of view, the researcher doesn't seem so intrusive. It's more to establish more of a friendship than just a purely researcher and subject sort of relationship. And right here I have cultural relativism. This is basically observing culture, understanding it, observing it without any preconceived notions, without any bias. Of course, this is an idealized version of going about observing a culture. We're always going to have some sort of cultural lens. Whatever culture we were brought up in, we're always going to have that in mind when we're observing another culture. So that's why I included this quote. Judgments are based on experience, and experience is interpreted by each individual in terms of his or own enculturalization. Like I was saying, you're going to view another culture with some sort of preconceived notion already, and that's just the way it is. Even if it's subconscious, there's always going to be that there in the back of your mind. Another thing I kept in mind is the etic and emic, which is a big part of my project. Etic is the outsider's perspective, and emic is the insider's perspective. So that's what I'm having here. I have my photos taken, and then I have my participants' photos that they took. So we're trying to kind of build this intercultural bridge through these photos, through both sides. And right here, my one of my integrative, or my bridging strategies, is the bridging the explanation action gap. So basically what this is I took these terms in anthropology, urbanization, globalization, culture, and identity, and I defined them through the anthropological perspective. And what I did, my action discipline was visual arts, and I looked at how other photographers have explored this concept and how they've captured the essence of identity through their photos. So I looked at a few photographers. This was Javier Silva Mainel, and he's a Peruvian photographer, and he looked at different cultures throughout Peru, mainly Andean cultures, and he wanted to kind of explore the mysterious beliefs that they have, and he kind of put a surreal twist on this. So he took portraits that kind of went along with more with surrealism to explore this identity. And then I have Pamela Shields, who's a Native American woman, and she took objects and photos and different visual aspects, made a collage, so she could tell basically the history of her own community through this. So basically my main findings were, what I wanted to address first was out of 7 of my participants, only 4 finished the photo assignments, only 4 really took photos and turned them into me, all of whom were male. The other 3 were female, and they did not follow through. They maybe wanted to, they expressed interest, but then they backed out, or they didn't hear from them again. And I actually looked in this, according to sociolinguistic theory, I can conclude from sociolinguistic theory that perhaps males are more likely to participate than females. Another important aspect that I concluded was culture is not synonymous with ethnicity. One of my participants is not ethnically indigenous. He comes from a long bloodline of a Spanish family that has been in Cusco since the Europeans arrived. But he was born and raised into this Andean culture, so he identifies with this. He does not identify with any European roots. He just identifies as being Andean. And my final conclusion is that this project may serve as a device or method for intercultural communication and understanding. So hopefully this could be applied to other cultures, like other 2 cultures, you know, someone going to another culture and seeing how that culture is. And so, and then I included the limitations and future directions part. I wish I would have, you know, going back, if I were to do this over again, I would have included linguistics as a discipline, because you know, after I did the research, I realized how important linguistics is in this whole intercultural communication. Linguistics is a huge factor for identity, for all of this. So, and I would love to continue this research, and I love to, like I said, apply it to other areas. Maybe not just culture, maybe just as a device for maybe to start teaching someone about something, see how someone views something, and see how see how 2 people view something in the person that's going to teach them, so as to start from a certain point. So to kind of personalize the education process this way. Questions?
Patricia, you said something interesting in a practice presentation about what you're going after. One of the things you're going after as a photographer, and I'm glad you ended on this slide. You were talking about the importance of capturing juxtaposition.
Yes, that's a good point. Especially with this photo, when I was taking photos before I started taking my classes in Peru, what I was looking for was juxtaposition of Andean dress, or just something that was visually Andean, juxtaposition between that and technology. So I keep mentioning how Lima is an urbanized environment. It's a huge city. It's globalized. There's a lot of technology. So this person I'm seeing with Andean dress in a city where people dress, you know, like me and you. They brought their own culture with them. They still dress like this. They kept that with them. And you have the cell phone, so kind of like it's the integration into that environment while still keeping their own culture with them. So, any other questions?
You talked about your own feelings of identification with indigenous cultures. How did this influence you in your personal views?
My personal views, just like I said, like I come from somewhere that the indigenous culture was like wiped out basically, and I've always been fascinated, and I always wanted to explore some other aspect. And I always thought about like maybe doing it in the United States, but then I thought there's indigenous cultures all throughout the Americas, so might as well go somewhere else. So in terms of it influencing my own views, it just gave me more interest in, I want to go and explore other indigenous cultures, not even just in the Americas, but around the world as well.
I'm just kind of curious as to what your future plans are. Like, are you wanting to get into kind of like a photo anthropology type thing, or more like a journalism area? I'm just kind of.
Good question. I could go either way. I'm more my whole major is photojournalism, but I really love anthropology as well. But I also want to kind of explore like sociolinguistics and then kind of mix that with photography as well. So.
I wonder if you could say something about the photos your participants took. Are there any things in their photos that surprised you?
Not necessarily surprising, but things that I didn't really think to take. Like things that maybe weren't more so obvious. Like one of my participants took a photo of a bunch of coca leaves. Coca, like basically coca leaves are used in the Andes Mountains to prevent altitude sickness. So I didn't think to take a photo of coca leaves, mainly because I couldn't really find coca leaves in Lima, because I feel like my participants had more access to parts of Lima where there are more like concentrations of Andean people than I did. So I didn't really know where to look, and he knew exactly where to look. So he took photos of coca leaves, of live guinea pigs. I took photos of cooked guinea pigs because they eat guinea pig in Peru. It's a typical dish. So he took photos of live guinea pigs, and at first glance, an outsider would think, oh, guinea pigs, maybe they really like to have them as pets, but it's really actually as a dish. They're raised as dishes. So.
Joe, you're a photographer.
Oh no. No, I only played one. Well, I was interested, like, so it's not really about photography, but it's another question. Okay, so what did you find? What does it mean to be Andean? Like, you say that there's these two different types, but like, what do they cherish now? Do they still cherish their actual, like, history, like the indigenous culture?
Absolutely. And that's a good question, because culture does change. That's one major thing about it. As culture changes, language changes. So they found a way to keep that culture that they know the older ways and this and that, and be able to integrate into this environment. So of course they still cherish it, but they're integrating it into things. They're influencing the urban context as well. So it's becoming popular for people. These festivals displaying Andean culture are becoming more popular in Peru, and especially in Lima, just showcasing that identity and like really going through, and because in the Andes it's not just one culture, it's a bunch of different cultures, even in the Andes. So just kind of appreciating the differences in those cultures and coming together and kind of showcasing them.
And one more question. I have a photography question. So what type of cameras did your participants use? Like, did they know about f-stop and ISO?
Not really. I kind of like gave them a little run through of how to use it, because 3 of them didn't have their own cameras. So I used disposable cameras. One of them did use his own compact digital camera, and I mean, there's only so much you can do with a disposable camera. So I just told him about a little bit about composition and just kind of keep them for the framing and things like that. So.
All right, thank you very much.